Welcome to the Edelheit Experience, a compelling conversation about revolutionizing health and well-being, bringing you rich stories and lessons learned from leading corporate executives. Now, we'd like to introduce your host, Jonathan Edelheit.
Welcome to the Edelheit Experience. I've got a really cool guest with us today, Mitch Martens. Mitch, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I mean, come on, your last name's like the coolest name. So it's like, I want to be part of the Edelheit Experience. I mean, who doesn't? Come on.
I love it. So, Mitch, you're, I feel like, one of the leaders in this space, a lot of diverse experience. Tell us a little bit about, your experience in well-being.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, it was not an intentionally carved path. I believe, not to sound too woo-woo-ish, but, there was probably some universal influences. But probably the biggest was mentors. I'm a big fan of having mentors. I don't care what level you're at. I think we should all have mentors and people to bounce things off of. And I share that because I started out as a therapist, a psychotherapist. So that's what I had my training in. And I went to Pepperdine and got my master's there, and really had intentions of like opening a private practice, which is probably what many people think. And I soon found that I was not thriving as an individual and as a professional. I was good at what I was doing, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean that's what you should do, especially if you're not passionate about what's happening. And the simplest way I like to explain this is, for the most part, I felt like I was dealing with people maybe who were below baseline and just trying to get them up to baseline. And my passion was more about, wait a minute, you're already an amazing person. How can I make you even better? That idea of from good to great, And so when I decided that probably the traditional path was not for me, I gravitated back into healthcare, which was just where I had always done a lot of my training anyway, specifically in hospital settings. And I started at one hospital, worked in actually psychiatry for many years, even got recruited by another hospital in Los Angeles. And in that at Cedars-Sinai, I was there for almost 20 years. And my path evolved while I was there. And the reason why I'm taking the time to share this is, I think if you have the courage to show yourself, show up and just be authentically yourself, people start to recognize that. And then they also start to see the strengths that you bring to a company, that you bring to a relationship. And with that, it really evolved from focusing on one department, which was our behavioral health and psychiatry department, to then focusing on an employee engagement. The organization became very dedicated to really improving our employee engagement scores, which, by the way, conversely, also improves your patient or your customer scores. Guess what? When your employees are happy, guess who else becomes more happy? And that's really then, after working on that, the organization really decided, hey, we really want Mitch to focus on wellness. Employee wellness is something that could be a better fit. And then ultimately, where I'm at today is Northern Arizona Healthcare, doing a very similar thing, focusing on and leading the wellness efforts. But what's exciting about this organization and why I wanted to come here was twofold. One, they rather than just ocular focusing on employee wellness, we focus on community wellness as well. So I'm in a department called population health. So unlike where maybe wellness often lives in HR, I live in population health because our organization is committed to not just employee well-being, but also community well-being. And I could go on and on, about, some of the directions that we're going, maybe we'll talk about that later, but that's at least a little bit of my path. But honestly, I would love to tell you that it was a master plan, but it was truly because of mentors who saw probably possibilities and strengths in me that maybe I didn't even see myself. Jonathan, I know you and I've talked about this before. We're sometimes hard critics on ourselves. And it's nice to have someone else say, Mitch, did you know that you're really good at, or, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my story.
I think the mentor part is really key, because I think a lot of us, especially the older we get, we don't even think about the fact, that we need someone to bounce ideas off of and give us guidance who maybe has a totally different perspective than us, because we just get stuck in the weeds.
Right. I mean, we all have blind spots, right? I mean, that's just inherent. We all have blind spots. And so hopefully you have a trusted mentor, friend, therapist, whatever it is that you feel safe enough to say, oh yeah, I guess what you're calling me out on might be true. I might be blind in this or not seeing it the same way. So you're right. I think it's something all people, but certainly all leaders, the good leaders should have mentors.
And there, like I think you, as you just mentioned, there's I feel like two different types of blind spots. The ones we don't see, and the ones we kind of, I don't know if the right word is, we fool ourselves into
Ah,
believing what we want to believe, and someone calling us on our BS, and then having that
thank you.
aha moment of, you know what, they're right. And by the way, back in the day, I wouldn't have the aha moment because my defenses would come up, and I'd just be like, that person is completely wrong, right? They have no
Right,
idea. Now
right,
I kind of like, what's the truth in what they're saying? Is this
right.
real? I have a process that goes on. And then, it's like, wow, this is really great advice. And my mind was tricking me into thinking something else,
So well said. I love that. Yes.
which probably ties into well-being too, also, because all of us have these issues that probably, make it more difficult for us to be better versions of ourselves. One question I have for you is, what are the well-being has evolved over time quite significantly. Like, how have you seen it evolve, and what do you think the biggest challenge is, as it is an employer that you're facing, that you're trying to tackle?
Yeah, it's you just said a key word that 10, 15 years ago we weren't using. You just said, tell me about the well-being. And we used to call it wellness. And what was interesting is not only did we used to call it wellness, but we were focused on specifically physical wellness. So companies were like, hey, let's have a steps program, or let's have a yoga class at our company, and that's wellness. And so, one of the biggest evolutions, exciting evolutions that I have seen for organizations and for people is to start to, again, open up their blinders and saying, oh, wellness doesn't just mean Mitch losing weight. What about Mitch's well-being? What about Mitch's financial well-being, his social well-being? A perfect example, when I moved to Flagstaff, which is where I'm currently living, it was 2 years ago. Now, if anyone can do a little math, 2 years ago was right at the beginning of the pandemic. Hey, good idea, Mitch. Move to a new place by yourself when the one thing they're doing is social distancing and everyone's staying away and shut things down.
Perfect
So
timing.
that perfect timing, Mitch. Way to go. But so that became the most important thing to me, was my social well-being. To have an organization that says, listen, you define what's important for you today. I will tell you, well-being, again, used to be kind of this thing that we did to people, because we're the company, we're the boss, we're the parent, we know best. And really where I see things evolving, or at least I hope it's evolving to, is this idea that, wait a minute, let's allow the employee to decide what's important to them, and then partner with them on their well-being path, as opposed to us authoritatively, or even, and I'll use healthcare as a great example. Healthcare tends to be very evidence-based. And so when we are making recommendations, it's evidence-based. Therefore, it's logical. Everyone should be following along with it. I mean, gosh knows we do it to our patients all the time. So we've had to really make a conscious effort to not do that prescriptive, we know best, here's justification of why we know best that you should lose weight, that you should, and all of those are well-intended ideas. But if the employee's not there, there's no sense in trying to cram a smoking cessation program down their throat if they're not there for it. And so it's really key for organizations. And that's where I think I've seen a lot of companies shifting to, is this idea that employees will call the shots. They'll walk down the path when they're ready to walk down a path, because well-being is personal. It's multidimensional. It's ever shifting. And maybe most importantly, it lives in the now. What do I mean by lives in the now? Everyone who's listening to this podcast right now, my guess is most people declared on January 1st, here's my New Year's resolution. This is what I'm going to do. But how many of us are following that New Year's resolution today? And it's not because we're bad people. It's not because we're poorly disciplined. maybe it's because things shifted in our lives. And so what was important on January 1st, maybe a day, a week, a month, or whatever time frame later, something else became the priority because your kids got sick, because you suddenly had to deal with a mortgage, or whatever it is, life happens. And so if wellness can't be malleable, and if it can't shift with the times and where you're at today, then you're missing the mark, especially as a company.
I completely agree with you. It's got to meet you where you're at that exact moment in time with
Yeah.
what you need. And, and before everything was in these little boxes of like, like you said, oh, let's get your steps in, right? And it's nice to see it being more inclusive, being, and really, well, even some of the solution providers in the past were still almost like you've got all these options, right? But still, it wasn't inclusive. Like, if you're, in like an older African American woman looking to do fitness classes, digitally, you might get a 22-year-old white guy from California who's teaching you, and
Right.
and so now there's this more openness of like, how do we start curating stuff, and for each person, for someone who they're going to connect with,
Oh,
which makes a big
exactly. I mean, I could, name off the top of my head several different, like you said, vendors or service providers that have really taken great attention into, wait a minute, rather than, I focus on therapy because as a therapist, here, this guy's a therapist, and so he can help all of you, as opposed to, no, this therapist is really focused and has their specialty in this area. And he focuses with these specific groups and these specific stories. And so why not work with an EAP? Why not work with a vendor that says, oh, no, no, no. We've got people, we've got coaches, whatever word you want to use, for each person's individual story, as opposed to let's all just fit you into this one tool that we have available to us.
With what you're focusing on today, what do you think are like the most exciting things? Or, I hate to use the word innovative because everyone's totally overusing it, right? But like
Mhm.
what gets you up in the morning to say this is something I'm really focusing on this year, or I'm going to launch this and it's super exciting?
Yeah. So I'm just kind of pausing because I could go in so many different directions, and it's funny when you say, "Hey, what gets you out of bed?" And gets you excited. There always seems to be one project or another, and that's part of what excites me about being at this organization. This organization says, "Mitch, you're the expert in wellness, not us." So you don't always have to come to us and say, "Hey, can I get approval for this?" We're not this hierarchical. You're the wellness guy. Go for it. And so it's so freeing to be able to say, okay, I've got this idea, and I'll use an example that we've just put into place. Actually, we're putting into place next week, so it's not even officially in place yet. But we've certainly noticed over the last 2 years, unfortunately, we had employees who had family members who passed away, whether it was because of COVID, cancer, whatever health related issues. And one of the gaps that we noticed is our leaders didn't know what to do. And so they would call my team, Mitch, we so and so's husband, so and so's child, so and so has passed away. What do we do? And and as a therapist, it made me realize how much I took for granted, that like, oh, this is my wheelhouse. Of course I know what to do. How can I create a tool? How can I create a solution that makes things a little more palatable for a topic that's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, And so we created something called a bereavement box. And a bereavement box is literally that. It is a box. It is like this ceremonial box that is given to the employee as a way to acknowledge, to remember, and to value what's going on with this individual right now, without interfering in their life, without making any sort of religious assumptions. It is a tool to simply honor the employee. It allows the staff to be able to write a little note if that's what they want to do. Obviously, there's some resources in there. So that's just one like little minor example. But the reason why I shared that minor example is it's fun to identify gaps, and I will that you're noticing. And I will tell you, I hope everyone that's listening, at least everyone that's listening that is in the wellness field, what I'm hoping is you have seen in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, we've kind of risen to the top. People are turning to us more and saying, help, what do we do? We're in these unfamiliar territories. So there's been such a rich opportunity for us to kind of lead where there are some pain points within a company. So that's just one example. But the other thing that I want to share quickly that really has me excited about this organization, and part of why I'm proudly talking about Northern Arizona healthcare, is right before the pandemic, this organization bought 100 acres of land. And what we are planning to do is rebuild the hospital. Now, that's not such an uncommon thing, especially those hospitals that have been around for a long time, that maybe there does need to be opportunities to refresh. And sometimes that refresh means needing to expand and find a bigger space than where you originally were at. And so this organization has bought a large amount of land, and we are going to rebuild this entire hospital in a new location. But why 100 acres when, a hospital doesn't have to take up 100 acres? Because this organization is truly committed to well-being, and well-being not just for the individual, meaning the employee, not just well-being of taking care of our patients, but well-being of the community. And so what this organization doing is, yes, we're rebuilding the hospital as well as, a few outpatient centers, but we are building an entire wellness village. That's their words, not my words. They're building an entire wellness village. So obviously the wellness guy gets very excited about that. So we can do things like have amphitheaters, so we can have culinary restaurants, so we can have these things that hopefully start to be attractive to the community. Because I think most people know on this call, going to a hospital usually feels yucky. I mean, unless you're going through a pregnancy, it's people associate hospitals with death, with pain, with difficulties, with challenges. And we want to be a beacon of health, not just a four-walled building that solves your immediate problem and then we push you out. We want to be this ecosystem of health and well-being to encourage longevity by creating a community, by creating a space that allows people, not allows, magnetizes, maybe is a better word, magnetize people to want to come together. Because guess what? We also know there's really big power in community wellness. And when lots of people are exercising, when lots of people are doing walking paths or biking paths, which those are all the things that we're going to be building, it creates this synergy. And then ultimately the whole community has better longevity. So those are just a couple. I mean, Jonathan, I could take up you this entire time talking about different things. Ooh, I could talk about wellness ninjas. We now have wellness ninjas at our organization, but I'm talking too much. You probably have other questions.
What do the wellness ninjas do? Do they jump out of the corner and have a like intervention with an employee? What does a wellness ninja do?
You are so funny. Yeah, I love that. So wellness ninjas are these stealth little people. So they're more than just champions. Like I think probably a lot of people who run wellness, have been encouraged, with the cookie cutter. You should have wellness champions who are trying to, pass your message along into their departments or whatever. And we have wellness champions, but wellness ninjas, it's a special honor. These people are harmonizing work and life wellness. What do we mean? What do I mean by harmonizing? You hear the word work-life balance a lot. Oh, how's work-life balance? And I don't like the word balance because it makes me think 50-50. Our work and our life has become, personal life. When I say life, our work life and our personal life have become so overlapped and integrated, and maybe not even in such a healthy way, especially with now people working from home and such. That we're looking for people who are harmonizing this idea of work-life wellness, meaning how is your resilience? How are you able to decompress in a way that still allows you? Because I think one of the things I've noticed with people who are struggling with resilience is they're also struggling with an ability to decompress. They're not having that space where they can decompress. So that's just one example. And it's our wellness ninjas are uncovering wellness opportunities. They're promoting self-care and awareness. Remember back to that you said earlier, Jonathan, about, sometimes we have blind spots and we're not even aware of the blind spots. So it's about promoting not just self-care, but also promoting awareness. It's this kind of like being a sensei, kind of using some of the words from Ninja. It's being a sensei of well-being for all. and just kind of being more stealth. It's not, you don't have to be the screaming, hey, look over here, I'm the flapping, come here to the auto shop kind of guy. It is this, you're just being stealth, and you're interjecting wellness opportunities when you see them. So that's what a wellness ninja is. And they get like this really cool shirt, that they get to proudly wear on campus, that has a little ninja on it. Anyway, see,
Very
now that
cool.
you got me going off on another tangent.
No, it's very cool. So, it's not, originally I thought maybe someone goes to take the elevator and they jump out and they're like, no, take the stairs. But I love the concept of the, the subtleness of it, and it being more, I feel, natural and authentic.
Yes.
So I think that's a brilliant approach. Even the naming of it, I think, is really brilliant. I love the bereavement box concept, because I think what it shows is that you're so nimble, right? And you're able to just be creative. And I also think not get caught up in, should I do this? How do I do this? Is there, like, should I not do that? I feel like a lot of people in organizations would just get stuck of, what if we do this wrong, versus,
right.
you bring a lot of passion and energy to it, and just like that authenticity of, let's just do the best that we can and just do it.
Right. Just do it, and here's what I've learned. What I've learned is, if it rather than trying to say, I'm going to do this house-wide thing, and I'm going to try to have to get approval from everyone and all this red tape and everyone signs off on it, what I tend to do, and this is a little suggestion that I have for anyone who's in wellness out there, is be okay with just finding a little beta group. Find a beta group, find a department or a group that just is interested in whatever you're coming up with, and test it out with them. And guess what? If it goes well, it'll go viral on its own. We started doing these resistance bands at this organization, with, we call it Take 5 and Thrive. And it's literally giving everyone a resistance band in a department. And now at every staff meeting, on the agenda is a 2-minute, maybe it's 3, I don't remember, a 2 or 3 minute agenda item where basically it's follow the leader. And everyone takes turns, every staff meeting, someone's the leader, and it's literally, okay, we're all follow the leader with these stretch band kind of ideas. And guess what? I did it for one department. Now what's happening? Other departments and other directors are calling me and saying, hey, I heard what you did over there for that quality department. Could you come over? So let it go viral on its own, versus feeling like, oh God, I need to get buy-off for everyone. It's, again, that's what I feel like because of the pandemic. We've been given this opportunity to kind of be trusted with, hey, we're struggling. Hey, this is new. We're not sure what to do. So you're right. Be a little innovative, be a little nimble, try something, and maybe just let it go viral on its own. I mean, gosh knows that's how things work on, all the social media stuff. It's, you never know what's going to go viral, but once it does, wow, then everyone's saying, I wish I would have done that.
It's really smart, because you're piloting it. No one's going to get upset that you're piloting it with a department that wants to do it. And then if it goes well, and then other departments want it, like, you've already built your model of, like, this succeeded and other departments want it. Like, who would say no to that?
Right. And now I have embarrassed myself house-wide with this idea that I thought was great, and then it kind of fails. And now, now I've got this black sheep mark on me or whatever. It's, it's really kind of a cool model.
Very cool. And definitely don't want the black sheep mark, right?
Right.
So so Northern Arizona recently went through Global Healthcare Accreditation for Business, GHA for Business, which validates a company's prioritization of employee health, safety, and well-being. Tell me a little bit about that accreditation and what made you decide to go through that journey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it is something I'm very proud of. It's something I'm proud of, but it's something our organization is very proud of. So I really want to stress that part, that this was a collective experience. This wasn't just Mitch said, oh, I'm just going to go do this. It was making sure that I felt comfortable enough to talk to leaders about taking the risk of telling our story, because that's really what this accreditation does. It forces you to tell your story about how do you take care of the health, safety, and well-being of your people. And your people is both your employees and your customers, of your environment, of your work building. And that's really what got me excited, because especially those of us that are in healthcare, we certainly deal with a lot of regulatory agencies that come in and say, you need to be doing it this way, and don't forget that. And we're gonna, it's kind of like sometimes what I feel, it's a little bit of like the gotcha, like, like they like to come in and say, I gotcha, ha ha, I'm the Department of Health, and I gotcha because you're doing blah, blah, blah. Our organization comes at our mission. I'll just tell you our mission, which I really should know off the top of my head. But really, our mission is very simple: improving health and healing people. That's our mission statement: improving health. So if I really believed that was our mission and that I could stand by that mission, then I need to be brave enough to be able to say, I'm going to let an exterior company come in and challenge that. And so we can prove our story that is who we are. And I believed in it enough, although, to be frankly honest, Jonathan, when I initially looked at this, I was like, or not initially, what got me initially excited about this was the idea that this was going to be an accreditation that truly celebrates and focuses on employee well-being. Often regulatory agencies are just focused on, is the company doing right? And maybe they would also say, are they treating the patient right, for better lack of words, and simplifying things. But this accreditation got me really excited because, wait a minute, this allows us to also tell the story of how we truly and authentically care about the health, well-being, and safety of our employees. And that was really important to me. Obviously, I'm biased. That's my specialty, and that's what I focus on. And so that's really what got me excited to say, yeah, let's give this a shot.
When you went down this process, was it something that the leadership was embraced? Was it something that leadership at first was like, what, do we want to do this?
Of course, yeah. I mean, like any appropriate skeptical is not the right word, but curious, maybe that's a better word. I certainly had leaders that were curious, like, well, what is this? And what's the cost? I mean, you've got you have the CFO. What's this going to cost us? You've got the CEO. What happens if we don't get it? Are we going to be embarrassed? So again, appropriate, curious questions. But that was my job, was to excite the audience, the audience meaning my leaders, to excite the leaders enough to say, no. First of all, please know, we got this. We got this. We're going to tell a story. We are going to show through our policies, through our procedures, through our communication channels that we already do incredible work. And really what got me excited was how this organization responded to the pandemic. I'm sure that there are some who probably crumbled, if you will, who kind of, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, honey penny, and there were other organizations who stepped up and say, again, using your word nimble, we're going to have to figure this out. We're going to have to, and this organization truly stepped up with regards, and I'm talking, there were probably daily meetings they were having to happen because it seemed like every day there was a new news report or a new political angle or whatever with regard to this whole pandemic. And when I saw how this organization responded, think of it this way: there's always going to be ongoing challenges in any organization, certainly in healthcare. Healthcare, we are constantly being presented with new emergencies, new whatever. And here's how I look at it: ongoing challenges will either dull your mind to despair or sharpen it to infinite truths. And I saw what this organization did, and it became. I just felt optimistic. I felt like, wait a minute, we are a beacon of what our mission state is: healing people, helping people. That's who we are. And if this accreditation can help share that story, and so that's what I did for our leadership. Is I was like, you guys, look at our history. Look what we've done. It's just since the pandemic. I have confidence that we will be able to obtain this accreditation. So yes, was there some selling, but it was just more about just creating the belief and reminding them of what's right in front of them. That's probably one of healthcare's problems, is that we don't take enough time to celebrate the great work that we're doing, because honestly, we don't have time to celebrate. What happens is, oh my gosh, we just saved that life, and now there's an ambulance coming in with another one. And so we sometimes don't appreciate the work that we've done. And this accreditation helped us to solidify, not only or validate the work that we're doing, but it helped to celebrate our organization in a way that to me was important, which was health, safety, and well-being of all. And again, when I say all with a stress, again, it's what I said before. It's the fact that the employee part was really important in this accreditation.
You see you or your organization using the accreditation as a tool in, whether it's for current employees, future employees, customers or patients in communicating your story and how you go above and beyond as an organization?
Absolutely. I mean, talk to any marketing or communication specialist. I'll use philanthropy as an example. Philanthropy, is a group that goes out there and says, Jonathan, give me some of your money, and more often than not, what happens is most people are willing to give up money when they can relate to a story and it's emotionally connected. That there's that emotional connection. So those people out there who've ever donated money, you probably have donated to something that you are personally connected to, whether it be the AIDS Foundation, a cancer cure, whatever it is. And most likely it's because you've had an association. I donate money to Alzheimer's because my parent struggles with Alzheimer's. And so there's emotional connection and there's a story there. And so, yes, what we want is to take this accreditation and to help it be part of our story, not just a validation. Of course, it feels good to be validated, but how we're going to use this is to really better tell the story of our organization. Because quite honestly, we don't always do a good job of telling our story, as I mentioned previously. And so that's how we will use this, not just internally, but externally. And what I mean by externally is not only externally in the sense of hoping to recruit new people, because those of you that are in healthcare, we know how hard right now it is to be keeping people, because everyone's jumping ship and going and working in travel positions or whatever it may be. So how do we tell a story that excites and connects people? Just like that story needs to connect you and then you're willing to donate. Well, we really are in a way asking you to donate your time. Yes, we're paying you. But from a philosophical point of view, that's what we want to do, is tell that story to our employees, tell that story to potential employees. And as I said to you before, we are trying to be a beacon, a lighthouse of health for a community, whether it's local community or nationwide. We want to be seen as that leader that says, we exemplify, we exude this idea of health and well-being. So that's really how I imagine us using, or not imagine, we are using this accreditation as a storytelling piece so we can better show who we are.
I feel Northern Arizona is really lucky to have you because you just bring so much passion and energy. And I think that also makes a huge difference in the success with everything you're doing, right? I mean, you got to have someone who really believes in it, wakes up every morning, wants to go above and beyond. And that energy is what, whether with your ninjas or that's what's going to resonate. And I feel like you should nominate yourself to be mayor of the Wellbeing Village that's being built.
You're very kind. I mean, that is so kind of you to say, and I appreciate that. But I'll be very honest. One of the things that I actually loved, and I don't know if I heard it from a movie or a quote, I don't know. But what you're making me think of is the best relationship is when both parties think they're the lucky ones. And so I know you say, hey, Mitch, Northern Arizona is so lucky to have you. Honestly, it's in the reverse. I'm the one that feels lucky that Northern Arizona thinks highly enough of me and trusts me to lead them in this journey of well-being for everyone.
As we kind of wrap things up, any special words of wisdom? Although I feel like you've given a lot of really great wisdom so far.
Really? I feel like I've just talked. I don't know if I've offered any wisdom. Trust. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. And that sounds kind of cliche-ish. I'm a big believer of the universe, and what I mean by that is that the universe brings you messages if you stay open to them, if you keep your eyes and your heart and your ears open to them. Again, it's like those blind spots. I mean, here's something, maybe you might think is silly or not, but this is the year of the tiger. Okay, Asian, Asian New Year. It's the year, maybe it's the Chinese New Year. I don't know, but it's the year of the tiger, and the year of the tiger is about courage, confidence, bravery, being ready for a challenge. I feel like for all of us, these last 2 years have been preparing us for this opportunity. And so which one of you are going to be that tiger? Which one of you is going to step out and say, I got this. I'm going to take I'm going to take a risk. And so I feel like if anything else, 2022 is the opportune year for us to lean into, maybe that's a nice word. I love that word, lean into our courage, our confidence, our bravery, our ability and willingness to take on a challenge. So I don't know if that's words of wisdoms or me just talking again, but
no, I think it's great. I think it's inspiring. It's about being bold and taking chances. And I'm a big believer in what you said about the universe, because if you're looking for things and you're open, you'll see opportunities. When you're not, when you're negative or you're not looking, you miss all kinds of opportunities because you're just not open to them. You don't even see, they could be right in front of your face, but you don't even see them. And I think it has been a really rough 2 years, and if we can survive this, I feel like we can survive, almost anything. And it is, it's about, it's not easy to take risks because we get comfortable where we're at, or we're afraid to take them. But you've even inspired me on something something I've got to do, that I was kind of hesitating on. But I think that be the tiger that's what's gonna resonate in my head.
Thank you. That's you summarized it better than I did. So yeah, I love that. Thank you.
So thank you for joining us, Mitch. We really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I wish you all the best.